right, you know it's Friday, and people always ask us, hey man, where's the love for the healers?
They
Why
always
you
do.
guys didn't do no tier lists for the healers, right? Right? Like, we love our healers, man, and
But
we
they're
love
useless.
playing...
Only Paladin.
What?
Pro Paladin.
Nobody said that, okay? Shut up, man. Listen, we love playing healers, but we also love playing with healers. So today,
For sure.
TLF, we're looking at the healing meta, quote unquote, for Mythic Plus. And as always, there's a lot of research going on in this. It's not our personal tier list. It's basically what we see.
The meta is definitely weird, right? There's a lot of data because obviously we don't push 24s, 25s because we wouldn't have time to make these videos. But all in all, just like a quick disclaimer, I don't think we've ever seen the meta being this balanced ever before. We went through like all the data that we had, and it was like all of the specs almost this year's like, okay, we're not gonna do that. It's a little bit silly. There's like a couple specs that are a little bit better than others. We're looking at some of the first specs that are doing 26s, how many 26s are done by the best healing specs. Obviously, the group also matters as well. And you can look at, you know, Subcreation, U.GG, Warcraft logs, and all that stuff. And obviously, everybody has their own ranking. And listen, at the end of the day, what we can definitely tell you is that you can play whatever you want, and you should play whatever you want. But
all healers are great. All healers are performing excellent. And it's really a matter of like super incremental differences between them. If we would judge by the numbers we saw, everybody would kind of be in at least S tier. Okay, so don't take this 100% like to the bone. Take it with a grain of salt because we're just placing them in different tiers just to have a differentiation. However, that's small. The differentiation is. Before we get into that, quickly check our new channel, Diablo Forever. Diablo 4 is being live for those who pre-order right now, so you can play it. And on our channel, Diablo Forever, you can find lots of guides, lots of tips, lots of coverage, lots of everything Diablo 4. So check it out in the description. Thank you so much. It's gonna help us out. Now, let's talk about Restoration Shaman.
Resto Shaman has been quite on a journey in the last couple of months, and
it's great. We love him.
I mean, it's clearing 25s, which is really good. And it has, I think to this day, has the highest amount of damage from all of the healers. I mean, we've seen our resident Restoration Shaman do it.
I mean, listen, this is a long time coming since Restoration Shaman didn't really have like much fun to play and to enjoy in season 1.
It was pretty toilet at the beginning.
Yeah, but things have changed for sure. And as Flame mentioned, it is one of the highest DPS healers over there in the highest keys push possible. Obviously, you have a shaman, then that means you have bloodlust, you have like the poison cleanse totem, which is really good in some specific dungeons. Yeah, I feel like this whole Dragonflight thing really values specs and classes that can deal good with the poisons and diseases. And shamans are up there, right? You have like the CCs from the totems, like, and the healing numbers are also great. So judging by all of these, high keys pushed and everything else in between, let's place this bad boy into S tier because it's well deserved. Okay, now one of our favorite specs to play, the Discipline Priest.
It's bad.
Yeah, man, they did a really good job on making Discipline, you know, something that can either go full on, you know, degenerate damage, embracing the shadow, or, you know, a little bit more on the casty side, a little bit more healing focused, oriented, absorbing, and all of that. Regardless of what playstyle people like go for, it still has the Discipline like utility and kit, like with the especially I think the biggest thing is the damage prevention, where you have
pain suppression,
the dome, you have the raptures, and so there's a lot on top of, you know, like super healing, especially with the radiance changes. That's like super huge as well.
It's a lot of healing outside of atonement because we had this talk with a couple of them. Yeah, it used to be way higher back in the days in atonement, but right now with all of the design for Discipline Priest, you actually do a lot of damage, which is something that they needed because at the beginning of Dragonflight and in Shadowlands as well, the damage was very poor, and you're kind of really reliant on, you're already doing damage to heal, so might as well do some decent damage because you cannot really opt to do more damage or more healing. It's kind of, you know, part and parcel with
it's a good mix. Yeah, sure. Being the healer that kind of relies on you know, healing through damage, it's not the biggest DPS healer out there, but it's decent enough. And in some capacities, yes, it does have to hard cast. Like when you have to DPS, you know, if you like mess up somewhere, you will get punished. Yeah. So there are a couple of drawbacks for Discipline, but overall it's really great to play. It performs very well. We're looking again at 25 keys, a lot of logs with 25s. placing it into A tier.
Yeah, it's been a while since this pin was this high, so hopefully our resident healer also plays this pin. But well, moving on.
Okay, Holy Paladin. Now, Holy Paladin, I think this is the highest keys we've seen.
Holy Paladin is part of the team right now that's clearing the 26s, which is the first healer that we've seen in 26s as of now. Which is very weird because if you look at, I think U.GG had Holy Paladin in B tier, which was
we'll
like...
look at the end of those.
We'll but the thing is, it might just be something that's happening this week. Maybe now people are coming into their force set, maybe they're just having their trinkets, maybe it's gear, or maybe simply is just actually having higher eye level, which translates into more Holy Paladin power, which is obviously really great. Not to mention that, you know, if this isn't enough to get your juices pumping, there's a rework coming in soon.
the rework is looking very, very promising, and I mean, at this point, you can definitely say that Holy Paladin is among the top healers for Mythic Plus. He'll probably be the one with the rework, and not to mention, you still have here a spec that can deal very well with poisons and diseases, very valuable as we mentioned with the Restoration Shaman, not to mention all of the other tools a Holy Paladin brings, like with the bops and the freedoms and the stuns and the blinds.
Has slightly better defensives and CCs than Discipline, and it has what Resto brings in its dispels and purges and all of that.
Yeah, it's kind of like best of a lot of the worlds, and once again, its damage is decent, its healing numbers are great. Not much negative stuff to talk about right now within the season for Holy Paladins.
They're actually looking really good, and I think it's about time that they...
let's place it into S tier because it's well deserved over there. Okay, Holy Priest. Now, Holy Priest is the spec that we played the most with. I mean, in our raids, in our Mythic Plus runs, and this by no means makes Holy Priest like incapable of doing what they're supposed to do. No, they're great. I mean, we're looking, sure, in the grand scheme of things, at the top of the top that we're looking here, you've seen a max of like a 24 key for the Holy Priest, right? Or did we see any 25s?
No, it's just 24s. They might branch into 25s this week because it's not tyrannical anymore, and we all know that tyrannical is kind of worse for healers to handle. It's kind of like a big barrier unless you're just pulling a lot of fortified stuff. But Holy Priest is like, as opposed to Discipline Priest, it's less punished, which is, let's say, a better healer to have in a pug group or with people that you're not necessarily familiar with, because if somebody fucks up, you can handle that as Holy Priest, whereas somebody like Discipline might not want to break their ramp, or like Preservation as well. You can kind of have like a set in stone rotation sometimes.
Yeah, that is a little bit on the simpler side, but it still has loads of buttons to push, which I guess this does sometimes. It translates into a lot of like responses to specific situations. There's one drawback as compared to the other healers here. I think they do the lowest DPS out of all the healers.
From what we've seen, it's not necessarily like the lowest is one thing, but it's pretty low.
It is low.
Where it matters, because it matters.
This is the thing. We do not necessarily condone having healers DPSing in dungeons. Always say this. It should be an option, not a requirement. However, in this high level that we're looking here, all healers are DPSing through their teeth whenever they get the chance to, and Holy Priest unfortunately falls on the shortest stick of that. So, with that being said, 24 keys, good healing throughput, a little bit more simpler, low damage. We put it into B tier.
Yeah, okay? B tier mostly because it's like fair. One key behind Discipline. So there's that's what we meant with the difference between, because otherwise it's 24s, man.
Yeah, all of them should be an S tier. We're just making like this differentiation based on the key levels and a little bit of like, we're looking at a couple of like drawbacks for the specs. Mistweaver Monk, another spec that goes for majority of logs for 24 keys. I think it's the second highest DPS. Mistweaving.
Mistweaving is Mistweaver in itself, it's coming into its own from years. I think literally it's been more than a year where Mistweaver has been either C or D tier.
Can I say that word? Literally. Sometimes I talk.
But it's definitely the least played healer out there. It's probably one of the least played specs, period, in the game, which boggles my mind because it definitely has really good healing numbers. It has really good DPS numbers. Granted, it still suffers, which is probably what's keeping it from climbing higher. It suffers from probably having some of the worst cooldowns that a healer can bring to a party. Cocoon is great, and we've seen shut up, man. We've seen over the last couple of months the devs trying to buff Cocoon like in so many ways to make it like.
Yeah, they've been trying. Mistweaver is quite squishy, and it's like it has really shit defensives. Let's be honest here. as compared to the other healers, okay? So maybe there's some love to be put into the spec move further down the line, the expansion. That doesn't take away from the fact that, yes, it does high amounts of damage. It has big HPS numbers, not to mention the amount of CC, mobility, and utility this spec brings is just, yeah, it's unquestionable, okay? So it will bring value in any group regardless of content, right? Sure. Still, on the range of 24s and all of that, I think we can put it in front of Holy.
Yeah, it's a little bit better than Holy.
Yeah, because of the damage, first of all, right? And, you know, the consistent HPS. Yes, it's squishy, we know it has shit defensives, but still 24
I think Holy has actually shittier defenses, most likely.
Okay, just based on the DPS. Okay, just based on the DPS. All right, Mr. Preservation, former Preservation, Preservation.
I have broken up with my toxic relationship with Preservation before, but now they're actually slightly better in terms of like the overall performance. However, their damage did tank. Losing the tier set, and with all of the nerfs, they have close to the lowest. I think they're second lowest DPS output out of all the healers, which you might think like, who cares? But you might care if you're doing 25s, which is what Preservation is doing, because every little bit of damage matters to get the key done in time. But it's still pretty good. It has some of the best cooldowns out there for your party. Rewind is really strong.
You have Lust.
Temporal anomalies, yes, Lust, like all of that stuff. We know Preservation. We're not necessarily new to the spec. It is still good. It has a good utility kit, and the HPS is probably one of the highest.
Yeah, yeah, and also it's one of those specs that could get a legendary, and that legendary is pretty nice.
That's probably gonna skew a little bit, because that's gonna be a lot of power, a lot of stats into a spec.
Yes, many giga stats. But yeah, it's up there, man. It's among with the top. We have to place it into S tier. It's doing great overall. Like with the negatives and stuff, it's still squishy. We know the DPS is not what it used to be, but with that being said, you still see a consistent 25 key push over and over. Okay, last on the list, the Resto Druid.
I think this is probably the most balanced healer in terms of everything that it does. It has really good defensives, like Iron Bark is really good.
Yeah.
It has probably the most amount of versatility. I mean, it's a druid, you know, you can shift into all of the stuff. Like, oh my god, entangling is not even an issue here. You can dispel curses, which have been a bane of healers all throughout Dragonfly right now. I think it also does the poisons through its remove curse, but it doesn't have anything for diseases. However, it does have like the flexibility of the rotation. You have HOTS out there, you can can't weave. I'm seeing some of the top Resto Druids can't weave in their dungeon in terms of the DPS, and that's usually good.
Oh yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? Restoration Druid is, I think, the Swiss Army knife of the healers, basically having a response for anything that's happening. Sure, you can talk about the problem with not being able to dispel certain things, but then you can always have a Paladin buddy with you.
And you're probably gonna have a Paladin buddy at some point in this patch.
And that's all gonna be covered. So you're probably gonna have a spec in your comp with the Resto Druid that'll be able to handle that, no problemo. It's just an all-around great healer to have. Okay, it's not clear in 26s like Holy Paladin, we didn't see any logs, but it's still 25s. It's still really good. The damage,
it's not
impressive,
it's
but
average.
not shit. Okay, yeah, let's put it into average. I would say it would be in front of Discipline here.
It's probably kind of the breakthrough between Resto Druid. We thought about putting it into S tier as well,
been S tier.
But it's let's say in the top 10, 20 keys being cleared as of recording of this video. I don't think there is a single Resto Druid, but there are Shamans and Lizards.
Yeah, that's the truth. Now the thing is, there's no C tier spec. There's no D tier spec over here. Cannot like mention this too much, but I'll have to do it again. We've put these specs on these 3 tiers because there's like super small increments between them in terms of like the differences. Either one pushed a little bit more high than the other, either like the damage on one is a little bit shittier than the other. But to be fair, we have, like Flame mentioned in the beginning, there has never been such a balanced like season for healers like since ever. I don't remember.
The best key is barely a few 26s, and the worst keys out of the worst healers is 24. So
yeah.
They're definitely very close, and I think we're at a point in the season where the meta is starting to shift from what we've seen, because obviously Holy Paladin is probably doing the best right now, but you have websites like Warcraft Logs, which you can see on the screen right now, where Holy Paladin seems to be at the middle of the pack, although Resto Shaman is still doing pretty well. Yeah. And you can see Holy Paladin being placed in the middle also on subcreation and new.gg, so
Yeah, this, like looking at these, obviously it's all like data that sometimes is relevant and it's so super mathematical. But when you take into account, like, okay, what is the spec good for? How does it help the party? What is the highest key that it pushes? What is the popularity of the spec? There's so many aspects you have to look out for when doing these rankings. But to be fair, at the end of the day, whatever healer you play or thinking about playing, you will do fine in any capacity, in any kit. This is the truth. This is like the differences are so minimal that it's amazing to see this, to be fair.
It's a good time to play WoW. We've said this before. We have videos.
To play WoW. So it's a great time to play WoW, and it's a great time to be a Patreon for Marcelian Online. And you know why? Because you're supporting the content here that we do on a daily basis. And also get access to some cool stuff like the bloopers, like our special Patreon podcast that we do every month, like the Patreon monthly chats we do on our Discord, and also you can get a wallpaper with your character on, depending on the tier, of course. But thank you, Patrons, for making all of this possible. Check the link in the description if you're interested for more, and also check our Diablo 4 channel. It's in the description as well. There's a lot of shit in the description this time around.
It's filled with stuff, and Diablo's in rage right now, but thank you for watching the video so far, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye!
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.